Okay, so I'm here with Dr. Marcelo Leonardi, the University of Michigan Women's Water Polo head coach since 2014. He has just completed his sixth season as head coach for the Michigan Wolverines. In his 6 years coaching, his record is 143-56, and he has led his team to 4 straight years of being CWPA champions and 4 straight years of NCAA appearances, with a top 4 finish in his 2017 season. The year of his top 4 finish in 2017, his team finished with a season record of 28-9 overall. He has earned 2 Doc Hunkler Coach of the CWPA Tournament awards in 2016 and 2017. Coach Leonardi is a respected coach both in the USA Water Polo world as well as in the Michigan Wolverines community. He is also my head coach and someone who has helped guide me through my water polo experience in the past 7 years of my life. So thank you for being on with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's go with you. I'll just jump right into the first question we have here. So when and how should a recruit reach out to you?
Well, I think there's a variety of ways to recruit. I think the easiest one is via email. You know, we live in a world of social media now. So I think that if any recruit, potential prospect that is interested attending not only just Michigan, but a variety of other divisions, I think they need to contact the coach directly via email. If you can always get your hands on a cell phone or an office line, I think communicating. And, you know, now that we're living in this world of Zoom and we're now compliance-wise, prospects can now video call and communicate through video. I would probably recommend using those avenues and be persistent. I'm going to say that because I never want to say that, you know, one spectrum, you've got the hardest working coaches in the world, and on the other spectrum, you may not. But if you're persistent in what you want to do, you know, send timely, informative emails, text. But I think it's also important that you need to educate yourself in what coaches can and cannot do at specific times throughout your high school career. And the reason why I mention that is because a lot of prospects, right, get discouraged because, wait a second, a coach is not emailing me back or calling me back, when in reality, we're not allowed to. And so, you know, if you go through the clearinghouse, if you go to NCAA's and you look at the compliance and the rules behind it, which, by the way, are always changing and always evolving, right? I think educating yourself to when is the first time that I can put myself out there? When's the first time I can actually get a response from coaches? And then what's the timeline? What's the actual recruiting process? You know, from the first time I can be on campus, from the first time I can contact coaches, from the first time they can ask me to come on campus and be able to contact and have a not only just communication, a line of communication, but to actually be face-to-face in person as well.
Yeah, and that kind of reaches in a little bit later. Like, I'll ask you a question too about like how important it is to speak in person, face-to-face. But it's definitely a good point to make that it's a two-way street. And so you don't want to be blowing up coach's email if they're not allowed to respond to you because of your age and like where you're at in that like recruiting the rules process. So I really appreciate that point that you've made there. And then also if you're recruiting in person on deck, because I know that, and you know, usually you'll go and travel to California, especially because we're in Michigan, and you'll watch like practices and games. So would you like athletes to come up to you and introduce themselves?
Well, I think that's
kind of leads off the last question a little bit.
Well, I think courtesy is very important, you know, and you've got to put yourself in that situation as a young prospect that wants to attend a certain university or be recruited. You're excited and you want that coach to know your name, and all you really want is to say, hey, I'm Jane, Susie, and I want to be recruited by you. But there's nothing wrong with a simple hello. We are human beings, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
But I also, in that statement, I would love a kid to come introduce themselves. But I also would let them know that, hey, I'm not allowed to speak with you at this time.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I would let them know because of NCAA rules. And a lot of the times when we go to pool decks, we try to sit away from the parents,
Yeah.
sit away from the stands, sit away. Why? Because there's just a natural buzz on the pool deck where, oh my gosh, this coach is here, this coach is there. And I feel like we have to protect not only the prospect, but ourselves, so lines don't get crossed. But a simple hello doesn't do a disservice.
Okay, good. I think that's an awesome piece of advice. So on a recruit trip, and I know that you have some really great insight on this, so this is kind of why I'm asking you this question. So on a recruit trip, do you expect the recruits to commit on the spot?
On recruiting trips?
Yeah. So if you're like a recruit and you're there, are you putting on the heat, or what are you doing?
I feel like my philosophy is very unique. And I can only share our philosophy behind it, but I do know how other coaches do operate and what their agenda is. Look, I feel if you're a recruit, I think that you should take a look at every single option, every single possibility, right? And I relate it to buying a car, right? Not only do you want to test drive the car, but you want to kick the tires, you want to look under the hood, you want to look in the trunk, you want to test drive a variety of different colors, a variety of different models, and see which one fits for you, because just like that new car smell and that new car feel, you got to get past that kind of honeymoon, right? Yeah. There's a lot of glitter, there's a lot of rainbows, there's a lot of distractions that can make things look really nice, but it's all about the right fit. I feel like, as a 17, 18-year-old having to make a 4-year commitment, you want to make sure that the decision that you make is the right decision for not only you, but your family. And so I feel like I would be doing a disservice to prospects by putting pressure in order for them to commit just to satisfy an agenda. No, look, if you do your due diligence in the recruiting process and you spend time and you commit to what your beliefs and your values are in the program, and you're trying to recruit the right kids that are the right fit for your program, then let's say then it comes down to a 50-50, right? And then after that, I mean, ultimately that person will decide. Hopefully they'll decide in your favor. But, I always tell kids, take all of your trips. Even if you're going to commit in the second trip and what the other trips are going to do are just going to confirm or deny what and where you want to spend the next 4 years of career. So I wouldn't rush it, Now, if your doors are being closed and you're being pressured, that ought to also tell you where they're at in their process. But, if somebody wants you now, they're going to want you later. Just be patient.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I just for like those who are watching, when I was on my recruiting trip with Marcelo, I really, really wanted to commit on the spot, and he's like, no, you have other recruiting trips that you need to go on first, and I want you to go on them so that you see how much you love Michigan. So to attest to his point of going on other trips, I definitely had Michigan's to compare to, and it just made me love it that much more when I was on my other recruiting trips. So I think you have some really good advice to give people there. So next question, when recruits come on the recruiting trip, what is the most important thing for them to ask you about, because I know that you give them designated one-on-one time. So is there a certain topic that you think it's really important to ask about that you enjoy talking?
Excuse me. The designated time, in all honesty, is kind of a forum for them to ask questions that have not been answered, or maybe more specific to what they're really looking for. You know, if it's a water polo component, if it's a school component, but in reality, I think the team is the most important thing. The team has to be the most important thing. You know, when prospects come on a visit and they go through it, see, we don't have our meeting initially, right?
Yeah.
We have it once they've experienced time, once they've experienced being with the team. And the team is the biggest litmus test.
Yes.
Why? Because they're the ones that I listen to. They're the ones that tell me what really happens. They're the ones that tell me, Marcelo, they're a good fit. Marcelo, they're not a good fit. Now, do we do our due diligence? Do we do home visits? Do we do the research? Do we build up with, you know, the information? Yeah, but in order for somebody to fit a certain institution, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. So by the time we get to our individual meetings, right, the important thing that I want to stress is that they go and compare and contrast every aspect. And we sell them, right, on the real, not selling them an illusion, right? So, you know, if a kid selects your program or an institution, it's about what really happens, you know? And so focal points are the academics, focal points are the athletics, and then life within Michigan, which is the community aspect, you know? And that's where their compare and contrast is. So what's interesting is a lot of kids, when we do have that meeting, they're like, all our questions have been answered and information overload. And I think accessibility as well, Heidi, where a lot of programs, right, there's so many people involved that impact or touch your program, right, through nutrition, strength and conditioning, you know, mental health, academic liaisons, that it's really important that sitting in that office is one of the first steps in going, this is how it's really going to be, right?
Yeah.
This is the office where if you need something, you come in here and we figure things out. You have a good day, it happens in here. You have a bad day, we problem solve, you know? And so,
No, that's great. I know that how you have it set up too is you kind of, it's the first day of the recruiting visit. So they watch our practice and then they go off and they meet the academic advisor and the strength and training coach, our athletic trainer for, you know, everything that's hurting and medical issues. So they definitely do get everything, you know, that they probably have questions for. And then after they meet with you, they even come and see us and we have a team dinner and they're asking even more questions. So it's definitely a good, you allow a good forum basically for everybody's questions to be answered. All right. So and you did touch upon it a little bit. So like what fit do you look for in your recruits, both socially and athletically? And I know that you talked a little bit about like your athletes being the litmus test. So
you know, it's taken a while to really understand not only Michigan as a culture, right, but how the water polo culture fits within the Michigan culture. Because as you know, water polo by itself it's a small niche sport with its own culture. And I mean, the university as a whole, I feel that you're always looking for individuals that want to be a better version of themselves. You know, we premise leaders invest, right? And, you know, Michigan is a pressure cooker. You know, you're going to come to Michigan to be a better version of yourself. And with that said, right, you're going to experience success and failure. But it's how you interpret that allows you to continue and getting better, right? You know, somebody once said, if you want to be good, don't come to Michigan. You want to be great, come to Michigan, right? And I believe in that. And when we go through our recruiting process with prospects, it's about, I compare it to 1 and 1A. I'll use your goalie cap as an example. 1 is the starter, 1A is the backup, right? Some of the best schools in the world, that's a 1. Some of the best water polo programs, that's a 1. Some of the best athletic departments and community outreach, that's a 1. Well, if you want to come to Michigan, you can get all 3 of those, right? That's a 1. If you want to downgrade on any other one of those options, then, there's other options. I mean, that's the one thing, is there's tons of institutions, but, you look at the University of Michigan, and it's excellent in school, excellent, excellent in community outreach, and there's expectations for you to actually do that and accomplish those things with the support, with the resources. But that's why I think that when you go through the recruiting process, the real is very important, not the illusion. And you look at our team, and our team is a mixture of all these puzzle pieces, right?
Yes, it is.
And you look at it and go, wait a second, how does all this fit together, right?
Yeah.
But it works.
For sure.
Because of that common denominator, which, people are willing to put themselves in that situation, to work that hard, sacrifice that much. I mean, it takes a special person to, at least, and I've been at part of 2 different university institutions to compare. I mean, it takes a special mindset and strength to be able to commit to that, because, I believe your sister once said, you never turn it off.
No. Yeah.
You don't turn it off. You're always on. And for some individuals, that's difficult. It doesn't mean that you don't rest. It doesn't mean they don't get sleep. It's just, it's hard. But people that we look for, that we try to recruit, embrace that. Embrace the process. Embrace the struggle, because through the struggles, we experience monumental success.
Yeah. And I think too, an awesome thing to be able to add is, like as you mentioned, like we're, kind of a mixture of different puzzle pieces that you think wouldn't fit together. Combining that with something, with, an environment that, like you said, is 1 in everything. And, like it's a pressure cooker. Like if you have something that maybe like you're deficient in, or like aren't the best at, like there's somebody on the team that you can go to and they can help you with that, because that's one of their strengths. And so even though maybe some teams have, certain type that they're looking for a bunch of people, like there's definitely positives and of having, a mixture of people.
Now, did you notice something there, Heidi, that I just didn't focus on? Technical proficiency, tactical standards, like a specific athletic type. Like, I mean, it's bigger. It's bigger. Like, I almost feel, I never want to say water polo is easy. I never want to say that, because we're extremely hard, and we're very good at our craft. But it's just a percentage of what we're looking for. I feel like it's the right fit. It has to be the right fit. And each institution, that sponsors women's water polo has their right fit, and can say that they have their own culture, and they have, like you asked me, what do I look for the center position, or the goalie position, or defender? And depending on the type of system, right, that we run in terms of water polo, that may impact the type of recruit we're looking for, and another segment to that would be, where are they at in age? So like when you look at a roster, right, and let's say we're talking about, you, Heidi, right, where you early on in your career, you looked at all the top schools you wanted to go to, right, but institution X had 5 goalies. The next one had 6 goalies. Well, that's kind of tough. Like if there's a log jam at certain positions. So I also feel it's about timing as well. you
It
know.
is very true.
So school,
Yeah.
polo, and then, you know, the one thing I also want to add, probably, you know, we talk about community, we talk about athletic department. I almost want to, what kind of experience do you want to have?
Yeah.
I think that's the key.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Beautiful answer. I love it. I
Ah,
know what we're looking for.
it's okay.
For collegiate athletes looking to walk on or transfer, how important is academics to you when considering them to join the team? And I know you have limited kind of experience with this, but if, you know, especially with everything changing right now,
Yeah.
is there an academic aspect that you're looking for those people?
Well, we have, I hate to use minimum standards,
Yeah.
right?
But there are.
Yeah, there's minimum standards,
Yeah.
but for a program like ours, we don't recruit mediocrity. And I know that sounds bad, but you know, if we're at an institution that puts a premium on academics, I'm looking for kids that take school seriously. Plus, there's a direct correlation between, you know, the work and scholastic achievement, right, and success in college, you know. And so, you know, if a kid is struggling in school and they come to Michigan, they're going to struggle. It doesn't mean that you don't have the resources, but we're also looking, you know, there's a certain type of student athlete that we're looking for. You know, we do want overachievers, right? We want kids not just that just get good grades. We want prospects that push themselves, right? So then when they get to Michigan, they know how hard it is, right? Now, do I have a number of APs or a number of baccalaureate courses? You know, the more the merrier, you know. But you know, when I look at talented water polo players, right, and I'm like, wow, like how she plays, love her body position, defensive, over the hips, shot blocking, etc. Right? I immediately think about, what is she doing in school? What are her test scores? What does she want to major in? Life after college? Does she want to go to grad school? Does she want to, you know, because water polo is only going to get you so far. You know, we're not the NFL, we're not the NBA. There's very few small opportunities to play professionally. So I think getting a degree is very important, and not just getting a degree, but life after water polo, where, you know, what are your aspirations? Like, are you done after a bachelor's? Do you want a master's? Are you looking for, you know, your doctorate or professional degrees? So I know that it's super early to ask a 17-year-old kid, you know, what do you want to do when you're 25?
Yeah.
But I also think that that's part of the discovery. You know, there's kids that we recruit that are driven, know exactly what they want, and somehow life changes, right? As you experience.
I do know. Yeah.
Excuse me. But I think that, you know, the grittier kids are, their work ethic, right? Their perseverance, you know, these are qualities that we're looking for that will be demonstrated in their scores, in their transcripts. You know, if you're still looking to figure out what you want to do, well, that's what college is about. That's where you figure out really what you want to do, right? You know, I went to school to be a doctor, and I'm a women's water polo coach. You know, I went from being a teacher to now a coach. So things can change. Life can guide you in different ways, but school is very important, Heidi. I think it's,
yeah, part of what you said earlier about like the different pieces of pie, like, you know, when you're saying like you're looking at a player and you like their water polo skills, but you're immediately thinking about what they do in school. And so, yeah, it is like water polo is a certain slice of the pie, but it's not the whole pie. So, yeah, definitely academics will always be important, especially in water polo, because like you said, we're not the NFL or anything after that where, you know, all you need is your sport. So, yeah. All right. Can you tell me about any transfer experiences that you've had, if they turned out well? Maybe, for example, like Danielle Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. You know, Michigan is not traditionally known, right,
Yeah.
for transfers. Other
Mhm.
institutions might have that. I know there's some universities that only allow you, like for example, the Ivy Leagues, they'll only allow you to play 4 years and you can't play as a grad student, right? So I think it's
Mhm.
important that as a prospect, you've got to really identify you get 4 years,
Mhm.
right, to play in 5.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid there were any injuries or any other circumstances.
Yeah.
You could add maybe an Olympic Games in there and that pushes your career, but you usually get to play 4 years in 5, right? So, if you're looking at transferring, I think, we have had a successful transfer in Danielle Johnson. It was early in my coaching career at Michigan, right?
Mhm.
And she was a blessing. I mean, it was a at that time, a calculated risk because I had never had a transfer at the University of Michigan,
Yeah.
right? And I was in my first couple of years. And I'm always a big believer that, you want somebody for 4 years.
Mhm.
You want to be able to develop them, because think about this. If you bring somebody in for 1 year, right? They have to learn the system. They have to learn how things are done, but they also have to learn how things are done at the institution.
Yeah.
And that's a beast in itself, right? So
Mhm.
then by the following year, the person's done, right?
Yeah.
And you only really get, traditionally maybe 2 years or 1 year if they're a grad student, right?
Mhm.
So, we have a sample size of that, and it's super, super important
Mhm.
that if you're looking at transfers, not only do I academically, they have to be on point. I think there has to be a level of maturity, discipline, and a strong foundation of character that is also similar to your team,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Because once again, I go back to the team. The team is your litmus test. If you've had and experienced successful years of developing a culture, and now you bring in an individual that may disrupt the dynamics and disrupt your culture, then maybe that doesn't help. But if they can add value to it and help evolve, and not just help in water polo, but help sustain the academic excellence, sustain the cultural excellence, and kind of what we're trying to do in our community service and outreach,
Mhm.
then if they add value to the program, and I always feel that it's a mutualistic relationship,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
You've got to be able to benefit each other, but also in a way where you make a better version of those people. And I mean, Danielle Johnson was, in that case, was really fortunate. She came in for what uh, came in as a mid-year, right?
Yeah.
And was able to redshirt,
Mhm.
right? And catch up on some academics, and then competed with us for 2 years. Now, I will tell you that I think that if you are looking for individuals that do want to transfer, I think that you've got to reach out to the institution's compliance
Mhm.
and academics / admissions, because depending on the requirements, it could be very difficult to get somebody in
Mhm.
as not only a transfer, but they may be deficient in certain units. A lot of their units may not transfer. Eligibility wise, it may impact progress towards degree. I mean, there's a lot of variables right there. So I
Yeah.
think that, if somebody's really looking at it, I think they need to contact, the coach, let the coach do the legwork. And then uh, it's kind of like a fast forward button.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
you've got a plan. This isn't your normal 4 years of college. So if it's 1 year, you got to have a plan. You got to really maximize your time.
Yeah.
If it's 2 years, you got to come in and understand that there's going to be a learning curve,
Yeah.
quickly adapt and adjust to the academics, athletics, and culture of the university, and then see how you can immediately make an impact.
Yeah. That's a, yeah, I I loved having DJ on our team for that 1 year, and I think she was a perfect example of a transfer gone perfectly well. So,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
experience.
Heidi, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
There is one thing also where, right now we're in a real difficult time,
Yeah.
right? Especially with COVID and the pandemic and how that's impacting sports in general. But, there's wiggle room.
Yeah.
There's now wiggle room, right? With this pandemic, there's a small blessing that comes out of it where, there's another year of eligibility that's being offered.
Yeah.
There's more opportunities for kids to be able to play in grad school after they transfer.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want to pigeon a normal transfer just being a 4-4. That's a 4-year to 4-year transfer.
Yeah.
I also want to let you know that there's a 4-2-4 transfer, right? And that's very difficult as well, where a kid goes from a 4-year to a 2-year back to a 4-year, right? But then, there's a new, I don't ever want to say new, but there's now kids are graduating early.
Yeah.
Kids are saving that extra year of eligibility and trying to do it in grad school. So, that's a new window that's being opened up.
Yeah. And I think, it's like you said, it's a new window. And so like some of the questions I'm asking about the transfers are going to be very relevant, especially coming up, in the next couple of years with, like you said, the kids going to grad school and the different percentages of the years that they're spending in undergrad versus grad school to keep their eligibility. So I'm curious and excited to see how that's going to work out. And I'm excited for you guys too, because I know we're going to have some exciting people come. So hopefully, in the next years with, wanting to play for Michigan. So. Alrighty, let me see here. Going off the transfers thing, when they reach out to you via email or phone, what do you look for, and are there any specific criteria that you're searching for? And no, you kind of alluded to this a little bit about like academics and their talents. So if you just kind of want to go over that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. When a transfer contacts us, I think it's really important to, there's something called the NCAA transfer portal, right? Where if a student athlete at a different institution has contacted their coach and wants to transfer, they have to be released, right? They can be, they hit their transfer portal status through compliance, and then they appear on the NCAA portal website, right? Yeah. And normally, usually when I get that email, before I even contact them, I go to that portal and I see that they've triggered their transfer status. And then from there, I'd contact my compliance office to double and triple check.
Yeah.
And then when they say, hey, they're good, then what I do is I'll take a look. I immediately look at what type of individual they were at their institution, right? Because think about it, if I have somebody for 4 years, I have a chance to develop somebody into a role player, a starter, but they're going to go through our program for 4 years. With a transfer, you don't have that amount of time.
Yeah.
Right? So your window gets narrower, right? Your room for error is narrower as well. Now, you want to know why. For me, it's all about why. Now, being at Michigan, which it goes back to the recruiting process and the right fit, right? I'm not saying that we're 100% accurate in everything we do, but we aspire to be great, right? We aspire to that. So what I do is, if the individual meets the criteria, I'm talking about, the biggest one is going to be right now academics, right? It's going to be progress towards degree, transferable units, eligibility wise, were they eligible? I mean, those are right. And then there's admissions. Will they be able to be admissible, right? So before we even talk about water polo and things like that, I look at that first, right? And then out of courtesy, because our community is so small,
Mm-hmm.
right? I will contact the prior institution to find out a little bit more before I even take these next steps and really commit ourselves. Because like I said, I'm going to turn every stone over. I'm going to lift every hood. I'm going to kick every tire.
Yes.
I'm going to find out, is there a flat tire? I'm going to find out, what are the reasons as to why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to integrate something that is counterproductive to the culture that we want at Michigan, not only at the university, but also within our program. Right. So I'll go through all of my research, and then from there, water polo. That's going to be the biggest thing, because how are they going to impact our water polo, right? When you bring a freshman in, the freshman has a full year to learn to be a role player, has a full year to learn to also, if they're a starter, whatever the role they fill, they come in as a freshman, and then they have 3 more years after that.
Yeah.
So like I said, when the window narrows with the transfer, I'm usually looking for the higher end transfers, right? I'll look for transfers that can make an immediate impact, satisfy all academics, bring in a level of maturity, and also have a recommendation from their prior institution, unless there were concerns or issues that are not at our discretion.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then, I would handle it similar to a recruit. I would spend time, now it's Zooming, calling. Yeah. I would conduct a home visit. I would do the work to ensure that it's a right fit for our institution.
Yeah.
So
that sounds like an awesome process. I know, it's definitely very different than, in the beginning at least, than a regular recruit coming out of high school. So I think you hit on all those points. Great, all right on the head. All right. If you could describe your ideal team dynamic in one word, what would it be and why? Take your time.
Our team dynamic. I'm going to have to say it depends on the situation.
Okay,
it depends. Because if you ask me what it's like on a Friday before a dinner, if you ask me what it's like in the team room at 7 a.m. before practice on Monday.
Yeah. Before testing?
Before testing. If you were to ask me, on the bus right before we're about to play, I'm going to say the one common denominator of our team is supportive, cohesive.
I would agree.
I would have to go back to our circle, our circle, which we know what it is, but it's our circle of safety, right? Yeah. So, for those of you that are watching this, you guys can read the book, Leaders Eat Last, by Simon Sinek. The circle of safety is in there, but it's our circle. It's what we control, but we're supportive and we're a family and collaborative. We're interconnected. I feel like when we struggle, we have each other.
Yes.
When we're successful, we enjoy it with each other.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. I think that's great. Great word. Yeah. We love our circle, and I will commend you on doing an awesome job with that this past year, especially. So, coming from somebody who's on the team, for those who are watching, Marcelo has done a really awesome job in terms of our team culture and, like you said, our circle. So we have a great dynamic on the team, both with coaches and with each other. So, Okay. So this is a little bit going back, and then I'll have like two last fun questions for you.
Okay.
But what like GPA, SAT, ACT score should high school athletes strive for if they want to compete for a spot on the Michigan team?
Oh, I don't know if I can say this, Cameron.
Okay, if you can't, that's totally good. But if they should
well,
shoot for something, maybe.
Look, how about this?
Okay.
Instead of answering that question, I'm going to answer like what I expect my team academically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always pride myself with my program wherever I'm at, but at Michigan, to set a standard of a 3.2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, what's that magic number? Now, I'd love 4.0s. I love 3.7s, right? All A's.
Yeah.
You want to think about the next chapter in your life, right? So if you can keep yourself above that standard, right, then you open up doors for grad school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't want to roll in with a 2.9, right? You don't, there's just no way. Like, think about this. Michigan is in whatever journal you read, right? But for us, it's the number one public university in the country. Yeah. Its admission standards are rigorous, right? So for us, we want the best GPAs, the best SATs, right? So giving you a number is hard, right? Especially with an ever-changing world where some universities are looking to get rid of the SAT. Some universities are making it optional. I think you shoot for the moon and you keep doing better, right? If I look at your transcripts and there's a lot of C's, D's, and F's, that's just not acceptable. It doesn't mean that you're not recruitable. It's just that's not what we're looking for at Michigan, So I would probably recommend, Heidi, that if prospects are interested in Michigan, have them look at the admission standards of whatever program they're really looking at, from LS&A, sports management, business, engineering, and really see what the highest and obviously what the lowest admissible standard is. Now, I will tell you that, as a recruited student athlete, right, depending on whatever institution you're at, there may be some flexibility. So I wouldn't be discouraged, if on paper it doesn't meet a certain minimum right now. And so like you mentioned, water polo is a slice of the pie. Academics, community outreach, community service, character. There's a lot of things that go in it, but keep your grades high. That's got to be important. So
even I can attest to, like, when you said earlier about, like, you don't know what you want to do, like maybe you want to go to grad school afterwards. I did not think I was going to grad school after I graduated. Obviously COVID changed a lot of things, and like thankfully I had cared about my grades and what I was doing in school, and so my GPA was high enough to get me into grad school. But for anybody watching, like, if you think grades are only important in high school, it's not always what ends up being true. So keep the importance on the academics even in college.
Another thing is, moving forward, because we don't know what our new norm is going to be, right? The range may change. We assume that the new norm is going to be
similar.
Status quo. But we never know. And so there may be flexibility. The range may broaden. It may get more specific. I think the important thing, like you said, continue doing well in school, but also do the research with your, actually two things. One, your counselor. Make sure your counselor and the NCAA core curriculum classes are aligned. Right? Challenge yourself to take AP classes right? Don't shy away just because you want a high GPA. I think it's really important that you challenge yourself, because that's another thing. If we're looking at transcripts and we don't see a single AP, then
Yeah.
how are you really challenging yourself? I think it's a recipe for a disaster. If you're trying to go to a school with academic rigor that challenges, so if you're willing to take, and I'll say this, a B in AP classes, I would recommend taking them. You're going to become a better reader, a better writer, which ultimately will also help you prepare for assessments. If an assessment, a standardized assessment, is required for admittance into the university.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really want to jump straight into college, not having, a similar rigor class for at least tried in high school.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like, I think those APs really did prepare me when I was in high school for what to kind of expect in college. So I think that's a great piece of advice. I'm going to ask you some fun questions now.
Okay.
What was one of the worst heckling you've ever gotten from the stands?
Oh, you know exactly where I'm going in this one.
I do.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, this was 2 years ago, right? Part of Team 19. We were on our inaugural NorCal trip, right?
This is one of my favorite games, by the way. Just
yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So
we won, by the way.
we did, but we opened up at I created this NorCal trip that went from Fresno State to the University of Pacific, and then we finished off at Cal Berkeley, and then we came back home, right? And we had just finished our game, right, against Fresno State, and then we went to the University of Pacific. Now, at that point, we had developed a really energetic, dynamic rivalry, and that's spinning it real nice, right?
Yeah.
But it's, first of all, it's always good to have a rivalry in sports. It's good because there's energy, it's exciting.
Yes.
And when you have a rivalry, you're going to win, you're going to lose, but there's a little bit more emotion involved. Yes. And we had positioned ourselves, right, with this trip to go into the lion's den, right?
Yeah.
And I remember saying this, right, going to people's lion's den and going and coming out victorious, right, and being battle tested. That's something that culturally I feel like we do a great job in our program, is like we don't shy away from anybody. We put ourselves in a position to play the best and compete against the best, right? Because that's how you test yourself, right?
Yeah.
So we went into Pacific, right? And all of a sudden, like, I noticed how things were set up, right? It was traditional, the pool.
Yeah.
The benches, the two benches, one on each side. But behind one of the cage, there was like 10 chairs. Like,
it was literally probably 20 chairs. It was like,
okay.
And it wasn't like right. It was because Pontre, one of our teammates, had said like, okay, the boy, like, I've been to this pool before. I know it. Like, they set the chairs up like behind the goal, and I was like, okay, no worries. Like, I didn't realize she literally meant 3 feet behind like the goal in the pool. So that was that was. So yeah, you walk in.
in the first half, right? We're starting on call it the east side, where there's no chairs, and there's like a bunch of guys probably from their men's team, right?
Men's team, yeah,
sitting behind, just cheering, and it's like frat boys, right? Just loud,
really?
Right?
Yeah.
So then we switch halves, and by the time the game is tight, right? We are holding ourselves together. We're playing well. I don't know if we were up by 1, right?
Yeah.
And a timeout was called, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these guys just start heckling. I mean, unbelievable, and just instinct, like dad instinct popped in. And what's funny is like, it's like if somebody were to say something bad about like my wife, like instinctually, right? I just, right? And I walk over and I stand, I'm supposed to talk to my team, right? Because it's a timeout. And instead I just go stand right in front of the cage, right? And I'm like protecting my goalie and my cage and my team from just an onslaught of, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a ponytail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And I remember hearing, oh my gosh, dude,
Like
just
George
clowning
Washington.
me, clowning me about my ponytail, clowning me about my hair, clowning, I mean,
Oh my
and
God.
I laughed. And I remember your dad was in the stands, and I remember like,
so mad.
oh, it was awesome.
He was getting
awesome.
so heated, and I was like, Ronald.
But that was like the moment right there where like I knew we were battle tested.
Yeah.
Like we were focused. And we just came back together and finished the game. But let me tell you, I felt it in my back. I was getting shamed in my back.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it was cool because it was my team. So
I just came across a picture, and actually, because I was talking to Sophie Pontre, one of our teammates, and I have a picture of her and I in the goal, lining up for the fourth quarter like sprint, and because our media guy Ben Blevins was there, and we're both smiling at the camera and like doing thumbs up, and like I just remember because during that picture they were literally 3 feet behind us, screaming at us and stuff, and we were just like, "This is gonna turn out well, like we got this." But I think that was like my favorite game out of all the games that we played 4 years. But
it definitely, it was sweet. It definitely,
I agree. Okay, so last question, and I know this may have been a little bit before my time, but have you ever made a bet with your team and lost? If so, what was it?
Ooh.
2016 NCAAs, maybe?
Yes. Oh my gosh, thanks for reminding me. Okay. All right. So I used to always have something related to my hair. Okay. But I've been fortunate enough to keep my ponytail. All right.
It is your signature.
In 2016, right? Julia Sellers, right? So a little bit of a backstory. Michigan, right? Maize and blue.
Yes.
Very bright colors, right?
Yes.
And let me tell you, you go to the M-Den, and it is
everything you can think of in maize and blue.
It's like a buffet of everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there is these specific pants, shorts that, I mean, are outrageous. Like they are like.
What's the pattern called again? It was like checkered.
No. It was, oh my God, Julia Sellers would know this.
I know, she would totally know
it. It'll come to me as right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like old golf.
Yeah, like the sweater vest with the crisscross. Yeah. Like.
Okay. So I said, okay, it's fine. No problem. You guys make the Final Four, right? Wait, was it win conference?
I think it was Final Four because I was
Final
watching that game, and I was like, what is he wearing?
Oh my goodness. It was, if we make it to the Final Four, then I will wear it to one of the games. And I'm like, well, first of all, we take ASU in the quarterfinals by like a last second shot, right? And it was a nail biter, and it was emotional, and we won, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh no. And
like,
reality set, like reality set in. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to put on these shorts. I'm like, we're in the semifinals against SC. I can't be wearing these shorts.
Yeah.
This is no way.
Yeah.
Right. And so, we're in the semifinals, right? And, we end up losing to SC by 3, I believe it was. And I'm like, I got one more game left against UCLA for third place. So I put these shorts on, and I'm wearing these shorts at UCLA, at NCAAs. First of all, I got clowned so much. by my friends at the time, right? Which,
Sure.
by the way,
Yeah.
very few anyways, but
Yes.
just the community, the water polo community, but it
Yes.
didn't matter,
Yes. Yes.
because I always want to say that it's for a good cause. If it helps my team motivate them and it helps them and and it also it just it makes you more vulnerable and human.
Yes.
And so
I remember because I was in the stands like watching that game, and a senior
yeah,
in high school getting ready to come, and like I remember my dad was like, "What?" Like he must have like there was probably a bet. Like I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that that is not Michigan apparel like
no,
issued from the school for the
no.
coaching staff.
Dude, first of all, you know exactly how I dress in practice every
I
day,
do,
and then
yeah.
for games.
That is nothing close to what you would ever
Oh
wear
my
on a
goodness.
game day. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all your advice and your stories. I know this is going to help a lot of players, so I really appreciate you taking the time today and doing this with me.
Yeah, well, it's fine. You brought me back memory lane too, which is good. So
I'm glad.
thank you, Heidi.
Of course.